Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Lucifer, the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow, as well as the latest episode of iZombie. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time and I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Lucifer, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow, and or skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of iZombie. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Lucifer. This turned out a very great episode, very kind of Maze-centric episode, which I really appreciate. In this episode, Maze is kind of believed to be the killer in the case because there's literal footage showing her possibly being the killer. Obviously, everyone has their hesitations about believing she's a killer. Obviously, like, you have Ella and Chloe being the ones like, no, there's no way. Even to the point, like, Chloe's even kind of ignoring evidence, like, well, that could be, no, that's not Maze. There's no way that's Maze. And it's like, oh, but the only one that's all for it is Lucifer. Because ultimately, Lucifer thinks she's just trying to manipulate him because she wants to go back home, but he won't do it. So he thinks this is all a roundabout way to do it. And so it's so many interesting things with that because it turns out that she ends up confessing to the murder and everything. I was like, the moment she started confessing, I'm like, okay, so it's like, what is this all about? Like, what? It seemed like she was trying to punish herself. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go to jail and everything. It's like, well, no, it turns out everything she was doing was because so she could get the evidence she needed to kind of track out, find out who's framing her. But I was just curious about it. I was like, oh, is she trying to punish herself because she's trying to be sent to a prison and stuff like that? She's really, like, laughing it up and just like, oh, I did it. But it's like, we know you didn't, so why are you saying you did? But it seems like that was the reason. It's kind of sad because ultimately the reason behind everything in the episode was because framing Maze was because this woman, her son, Sebastian, the lady at the winery, her son ended up drunk driving and killing a little girl, I think was what it was, and Maze caught him and he went into jail. Basically, he ended up getting killed in jail during like a prison fight or something like that. And so she blames Maze for her son dying, which this all kind of, it's kind of interesting because in this episode, Maze is kind of like, everyone kind of blames me for everything. Like, oh, let me just fit the role of being the big nasty demon that everyone hates. Which is kind of similar to how Lucifer feels. Like, everyone just kind of threw his name through the mud, in particular in the first season. Like, why do I have to take the blame for everything? Why do I have to be considered the ultimate evil, you know? But in Maze's case, it's just because she's lashing out, because she's hurt, she's feeling so much, and it's just overwhelming. And, you know, it's all a little too much. Because you even have Chloe telling her, it's like, no, we care about you. You're like my best friend, Maze. Like, you know, you're very important to Trixie. It's just like, don't throw away your life. But, you know, for Maze, it's like, you're the reason why I can't leave. He won't take me home. And obviously, Chloe doesn't understand, but Lucifer kind of does. And the sad thing is, it's something I've talked about multiple times, is the fact is, Maze cares a lot. Even though she tries to pretend like she doesn't, she does. Like, things are complicated here on Earth. It's like there's so many people and there's feelings and caring about people. It's too much for her because for her, she's feeling tortured. And it's like, I'm the demon. My thing is to torture other people. I'm not the one that's supposed to be getting tortured. And it's all because of, like, living on Earth has become overwhelming. And so, but Lucifer won't take her back home because it's like, I need you, you know? And it's because, like, well, Chloe and Pierce are getting closer and everything. But then Maze, obviously taking it the way she should, is like, I'm always going to be a consolation prize to you, aren't I? Like, I can never be important to you. Because when you actually break it down and think about it, Maze has been wanting to leave Earth since, like, season 1. But what was the main reason why Lucifer never left Earth? Chloe. So I think on a level, like, she's come to resent Chloe too, because like her and Lucifer had a good relationship until Chloe came into the picture, and then their relationship got turned, you know, upside down. It's not what it was. I've kind of commented on it multiple times, like how the Maze we see before us now is definitely not the Maze from season 1, because obviously we see that we can get kind of flashbacks to the old days, just how protective she was towards Lucifer and everything. And now you see that that's no longer the case, because like she kind of had built her own life, but now that life is becoming suffocating because it's just kind of like I said, it's just too much, you know. Because it all started with the whole, like, because feelings weigh you down, because all it did was caring about people. All it did was make it that much easier for people to break her heart. In this particular case of Benadil and Linda, you know. And so she ended up lashing out there. She feels like all she does is destroy relationships. And now on top of that, she's hearing once again, like, oh, for a second she was, oh, I'm actually important. Oh, it's because Chloe's not there, so I'm second runner up. Which Lucifer's like, no, that's not the. It kind of is, like, at least in Maisie's perception, because it's like there's been no you and Maze for such a long time. I was actually surprised because I thought the whole episode was going to lead up to him being like, well, I guess we should leave. I thought the cliffhanger would be like, we should leave together. It's like, I have no more reason to stay here on Earth. You have no more reason. Then I guess I should go. But even with things being the way it is, like, even now, Lucifer still doesn't want to go, because I think no matter what, because he still wants to be around Chloe. Like, they might not have the relationship that he would want them to have, even though he probably doesn't know for sure what he wants. Like, he definitely knows that there's just, he feels like she's slipping away from him. But even with that being the case, he still wants to be nearby, because at least they can still work together and everything. So it's just a sad situation compound upon itself, you know? I did like, obviously, like, the whole moment of, like, Ella being like, there's no way I mean, yes, there's, like, a whole bunch of evidence saying that you totally did it, you know? I mean, I've never seen this much evidence stacked against a person, like, there being such little evidence to prove that someone didn't do it, and it's like, oh, give me a hug, Ella. I was like, it is weird that she's asking for a hug, but I was like, oh, what is it for? It's like, is she going to slip something on Ella or something? I was like, no, she ended up taking Ella's card, and that poor dude that's only been working here for a few weeks didn't know what Ella looked like, so he's all amazed. It's like, oh, can I get one of your famous hugs? And she hugged him and then, like, choked him out, and Ella's super pissed later on, because I was like, Maze ruined hugs, because now it's just kind of like, they're forever ruined now, because of, like, you know, because of this one situation. I guess word will spread about the terrible hug that, you know, Maze gave out in Ella's name, and Ella's probably like, it's going to ruin my good reputation as being a good hugger, you know, so. And then also there's, like, those different people that Maze has bountied in the past, and one of those dudes come out, she ate my goldfish, and you have Lucifer laughing, and I love the fact is that Chloe laughed too, which the way that looked, that didn't even look like a fake laugh, like it didn't seem like that was acted. To me, they did such a good job. If that was acted, they did such a good job, because it seemed like that was more like a blooper, that they were laughing so much that they just like, no, let's keep it in there, you know? So, I mean, that's how I feel about it, but probably not the case. But because when you look at all those people, like, no matter how much of their run-in they had with Maze, there was kind of a benefit to it. It's like, yo, but Maze kind of set me straight, or like, oh, even though she beat the crap out of me, she bought me a beer afterwards and stuff like that. That one dude, she captured him, but she taught him how to make a shiv, and it ended up ultimately saving his life in another instance. Kind of showing you just kind of the duality that is Maze. That even though Maze is complicated like she is, there is good that comes along with her. So it's just sad that things kind of have gotten to the point that they've gotten to. And obviously you have a whole thing with Piers and Lucifer and Chloe, that whole situation, which Chloe has to be like, no, there's nothing between me and Lucifer. And obviously Lucifer is trying to kind of divide it up a little bit, but like he's pretending like he's okay, but obviously it's hurting and killing him a little on the inside. Not even a little, a lot. It hurts because he cares so much for Chloe. And it's like, this is the first time in the entire time he's known Chloe that he's had to share her. Because obviously, like, by the time he came into the picture, her and Dan weren't as close as they were. Eventually, like, their relationship fell apart. But even Dan kind of goes, well, that was because of me. And so it's kind of interesting when it's all said and done. Because Dan kind of talked about it too. It's like, well, Chloe and Lucifer, that's a situation that you're not going to cut through. That they created a bond. And it's like, oh yeah, it's like when you get in a relationship with a lady who has a cat, you only have two choices. You either just kind of don't deal with it, or you just accept the cat, which Pierce is kind of like, well, there is another way of handling that, and that's get rid of the cat. Because the sad thing is, like, because Chloe was wearing the bullet that kind of is a special bond between her and Lucifer, and she ends up putting it away later on and stuff like that. Because even she's kind of realizing, like, well, I'm in a relationship with you, so it's super messed up that I'm letting my partnership with Lucifer getting away, because even she recognizes there is more there to it. Like, probably she won't act upon it until Lucifer, because she was the one who kind of put herself out there at first, but then Lucifer kind of pulled back and made her feel stupid for putting herself out there, so she's not willing to take that chance again. So she probably won't admit how she really feels, because you can tell she cares for Lucifer beyond just a partnership thing. I think she feels the same way. No, she definitely feels the same way for Lucifer that he feels for her, but it's just because she put herself out there before, she's trying to pulling that back just like Lucifer did. So I think it's a situation of like, she won't move until he moves. Once he confesses how he feels, then I'm sure that will change everything. But I don't see Lucifer doing that anytime soon, just because of the complicated situation of like, well, he thinks everything Chloe has ever felt for him in the past, like, wasn't really her, it was God. And then at the same time, it's just kind of like so much time has passed, so he just, Lucifer's not just willing to admit the truth, so I think, ultimately he probably say as a devil he's not scared of anything, but yeah, that's the thing he is scared of most. So what we do, interestingly enough, have is Pierce going to Maze and saying like, oh, he'll help her do what she needs to do. And it's like, wait, what? Like, it's like, I won't pretend to be your friend like everyone else has. He's like, so you help me and I can make sure we all get what we want. So obviously we know he's manipulating Chloe. Like, this whole situation with Chloe is just for the purposes of finding a way to get his mortality. Like I said, I feel like, I guess, like I said, my understanding is it seems like he thinks if he can create a bond with Chloe, that's kind of still my running theory, then that will compensate for, like, oh, if he gets her to fall for him, maybe that will create a situation where he'll become mortal. Because I think he thinks that's what happens between her and Lucifer is because of that bond. But like I said, like, it happened before they even bonded, like that whole situation. But maybe he feels like that's a contributing factor, or maybe there's something more to it. I have no idea what his, like I said, that's where my mind has been for the past couple episodes with this whole situation, but who's to say that is ultimately what he wants? And the question is too, like, what does Maze want? Because obviously, maybe it's a situation where she kind of wants revenge against all the people that make her feel this way, maybe even revenge against Lucifer. Like, because her and Lucifer have gone at it before. Let's not forget, like, last season, they had their big, like, big brawl, and I think this kind of stems from that too, because that was a big argument then, was because it's like Lucifer didn't consider how Maze felt, and for her it feels like the same way again. It's like I said, because it seems like this is this is coming together all from like the entire series, like, because she's felt like she's become an afterthought for Lucifer. Like, he has to think about her, like, without even trying. Like, he doesn't have to do that with Chloe. Like, Chloe's at the forefront of his mind, but he feels like she's way in the back of his mind behind everyone else. Like I said, just like because they had such a special bond before and she feels like she's lost it. So it's just a sad situation. So I'm curious to see what Maze will do helping them, because this might be ultimately the thing that like ends up making her finally snap back, realizing like, because ultimately Lucifer was kind of like, he hopes that, Pierce has the best of intentions. And if he knew that Pierce had the best of intentions, then he'd be 100% happy. I mean, he wouldn't be happy, but he'd be a lot more accepting of the relationship and everything. So maybe when Maze finds out the truth about this whole situation with Chloe, maybe that will. I don't know, because right now she's pissed at Chloe. She's pissed at everybody, all her friends. She's trying to cut all ties. So obviously she's probably going to stay out of sight, but we'll probably be seeing her working behind the scenes with Pierce. In what capacity, like I said, we will just have to wait and see on that front. But another big element to this episode was the whole situation with Charlotte, because it seems like a minute ago, last episode didn't tell her everything. He kind of gave her like, oh yeah, you were married to our dad. You became our stepdad. Our stepmom and everything. You got married to our dad and became our stepmom. And she actually goes and tells Linda that. Obviously, like, he left out a lot of the celestial stuff, but Linda was kind of like, pretending like she didn't know a minute ago. Like, oh yeah, this mysterious guy came up to you and everything. But then she kind of snaps at a minute ago. It's like, you shouldn't have done that. Like, in the state that she's in, like, you really shouldn't have done that. But like a minute ago, I was like, I'm not even doing it just because she was my mom. I know she's not my mom. She's a person that's in need and needs help. I just feel like we owe her that much. But then Linda points out something. It's like, and I think I might have said something about it too. It's like, are you doing this because you legitimately want to help Charlotte? Or are you doing this because you want to help yourself? Because he thinks like, oh, maybe this is part of his test, his next challenge. It's like, oh, my, like, quote unquote mom walked back into my life and everything. So it's like, obviously I've got to fix her. Like, maybe that's the next part of my, like, he's still striving to kind of prove himself, because he thinks this is all part of God's plan. Maybe he'll kind of be welcomed back as an angel, get his powers and his wings back and everything. So ultimately, at the same time too, and that might be a contributing factor, just because of the place, because of the TV show The Good Place, it kind of works in a similar sense of like, the moment your karma, like the good stuff you do in life, only counts when you're doing it for non-selfish reasons. That basically everything Aminado does, no matter what he's doing it for, like, even though it might be for the good of people or whatever, like, it might be for like, oh man, I'm trying to do the right thing. It doesn't matter, because you're doing it for selfish reasons, because you're expecting a reward out of it. You're thinking like, not only out of duty, but also because you think, oh, it'll put you back in good graces, it'll make you an angel again. Whether or not that's fully his intent, like, there is a small part of him that probably a probably even bigger part of him than I'm, willing to acknowledge. It probably feels like that, but I mean, that's just how I'm seeing it. So about it, and Lucifer spills the beans about everything because she feels like I'm going crazy, so I need to know the truth. Goes to Menadel about it, but then she's like, it can't be true, because if she admits it's true, then she's like, I'm crazy. And so Lucifer settles things because Amenadel's like, well, you know what to do. It's like, are you sure about this? And Amenadel's like, yep. And so Lucifer shows her his wings, and now she's like, I'm not crazy. Which in turn, it does validate everything they said, but it does make you wonder, what does that mean about Charlotte? Will she run her mouth off to other people about this? Because ultimately, if she did, it would just make her look crazy. Or, I'm curious to see what that means, because for her, it's like, well, that makes the whole situation with hell a lot more legitimate. So maybe it will continue her down in this path or something like that. I'm curious to see what they do, because I am kind of scared that, there will be consequences for doing this, that basically it's going to set her down, because she's not in the right state of mind. She's trying to piece herself back together, and now learning this, it puts you probably in a very existential mood and stuff like that. So we might see her spiraling. She might go back to her old ways because she feels like it doesn't matter anymore. Maybe she's not going to try as much. I kind of hope not. Maybe she might try too hard and ends up kind of overcorrecting like she was at the beginning, rather than kind of having that nice balance. I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens, because obviously she doesn't know that Linda knows about everything. So I'm wondering, is that going to be a conversation that comes up or not? She does know that Lucifer is Linda's patient, but she doesn't know how much Linda is in the know about all this. So I'm curious to see kind of how that all turns out. This is, like I said, a great episode with everything that it's setting up, and I'm just curious to see how this all plays out. Sadly, there won't be an episode next week. I am seeing conflicting dates. One thing I was looking at was saying that there will be one the week after next on the 9th. But then there was another one that was kind of saying, no, it's going to be on the 16th. So I'm going to double check that when I upload this, and kind of leave it in the comments down below if you are curious. But if anything, I'd probably lean more towards the 16th. I think that might be the one. But like I said, I'll try and look it up upon this recording going up to kind of let you know what's up. But either way, I cannot wait to see what the show has in store for us when Lucifer returns. And now moving on to this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow, another great episode. In this episode, we finally get to find out what Ava's big secret is. Because even the team was thinking, well, I was thinking like, oh, an anachronism. But it's like, nope. Because I feel like, I was like, because the fact that they threw it out there early, I was like, okay, good. Because that means that's not it. It can't be that. Because it's like, it can't be something that simple. Because obviously, like, there are changes of time that have kind of been set in anyway. Like, once again, I use the example of Martin and his daughter, like that whole situation. But that doesn't really count as an anachronism. That was just something he ended up changing himself, which I think it's still borderline as an anachronism, because it wasn't anything that's not along with the original timeline, but it's such a minute detail. But who's to say, his daughter doesn't go off and do great things, so having a larger effect on her timeline and everything, that's a whole time thing in itself. But it seems Ava, it's funny because we ended up finding out that so much, because they're like, oh man, we get to meet Ava's parents. I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. And then Sarah started getting super suspicious and everything. And it's like, oh, they're paid actors. I was like, wait, what? Because at that point in time, I was like, yeah, because obviously Ava doesn't know anything about her past. But obviously Sarah and the others don't, because they're like, oh, obviously Ava's lying about her past. They're thinking like, in Sarah's case, she's thinking Ava's the one that's hired the actors and stuff like that, because it's even something like, well, Ava's only like, it's like, and it's kind of interesting too, because with Ava's whole thing, like she's only been herself for like a couple months, because they were faking being her parents, like for only like was it years or was it like months? I don't remember what they said exactly, because it's like Ava doesn't pop around long enough for it to really matter. She doesn't come around that often, so it doesn't really matter that much. Really quickly too, I'm jumping all around, but it's kind of interesting that she basically talked about being on Upswipe, which I'm curious, what's the state of that app? Because let's not forget, Damien Dark killed Alan. I mean, the company still went on without him, but it's kind of an interesting thing when you think about it. It's like, oh yeah, that company's like, I guess he'd be the CEO, founder, whatever the case may be, is dead, but I guess it's just kind of like, oh, we'll continue without him, especially since Ray's not there either. I would think out of anyone, Ray would probably be the next in line, but amongst his position, he was probably like a lower tier person in the company. Like Alan was the top dude, and Ray was kind of like maybe second or third tier. Nevertheless, kind of getting all in that in itself. But it turns out that Ava's a clone. I was like, now that's super interesting. Basically, for whatever reason, 2213 Ava is a breed of clones. Basically, they took all the amazing thing, like all the greatest genes from around the world to create the perfect woman. And just Sarah just being like, oh my God, like she's feeling so bad about it. And then Ava shows up and Ava's like, what's going on here? She sees, and passes out because it's like, oh crap, she didn't know. We knew she didn't know, but Sarah and them thought she was hiding it, which I love. There's so many conversations about like, it's like, oh my God, there's so many like Avas around. And you have Sarah being like, this has to be hell. I'm literally surrounded by my exes. And then it's just like, Gary's like, man, I had a dream like this once. Sarah's like, yeah, me too, but it was with a lot less clothing. Gary's like, me too, which is like, you already kind of having that face like, okay, let's literally walk past that conversation. I love Gary every time he shows up because he's talking about, oh my God, what, you and Agent Sharp broke up? What? He's like, I was shipping you guys so hard. You're so cute. Because even Ray, because she didn't tell the team that she had broken up with Ava. I was like, man, because even Ray was like, well, I'm curious to see will the rest of the team, will she even bring it up to the rest of the team? Because currently the only one who knows is Ray. So, but that's a little disheartening for Ava because now she finds out like everything she knows about herself is a lie. That means all her memories, the life that she believes she had was a complete and utter lie. The story she told, like the story that she ended up telling Sarah about her 15th birthday that she had told Sarah like last episode or episode before last, like that's a complete lie. It's a fabricated memory, which is kind of interesting too, because it's like, because you know, with the whole clone, I mean, they brought it up that it's like, oh, it's from the genes of multiple people. So I guess, but it's just like, where did they get the design from? Like, is there an original Ava? Kind of like, I'm crossing streams here, I know, but in Agents of Shield, Ada was actually based off a real person's, like a real person before. I forgot like the name of the lady who she's originally based off of. But I was wondering, is that, did they take the design of Ava and then combine all the different genes together? Or is like her design literally the byproduct of all the genes being put together? I even love Ray making a joke of like, well, I mean, say perfect, you know, to create the perfect woman, she is still kind of a little pale, but nevertheless. But that's gotta be kind of crazy having your entire world like turned upside down like that, because it's like, she, you know, gets into like an existential crisis moment of like, I mean, I'm not real. I'm not a real person. And it's just kind of like, holy crap. But Sarah had to be like, no, you are. Because you're you. You got your own personality. These clones, not robots, are not you. So, and I did appreciate her being like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep these too. I'm curious what else. I mean, but didn't it seem like they had weapons stashed in their bodies? Because like the final Ava, didn't she stretch her arms out and draw out like blades or something like that? Maybe it's kind of underneath her sleeves or something like that. But maybe she just had those weapons on already. But I could have sworn it looked like those slid out of her wrist, which make you go, huh, can Ava do that? Also, she walked away with the suit too. So I guess that's going to be like her battle armor when she's like in a fight or something, rather than being in her agent suit. Maybe she'll switch to that when it's time for battle. We'll probably be seeing that kind of coming up soon, but that's going to be very interesting. But the ultimate question walking away from this is, why did Rip do what he did? Like, why did he go to the future to get Ava? Is it is it because of this battle against Mollis? Is that what this is all about? Did he need a good soldier, the reason why he got her, or is there something else to that? Because it's like, why would you, because like that's something we don't actually know about the rest of the time bureau. Like, what points in history are they all from? Like, Ava's the only one we now know. Like, that was never a thing. Like, we know where time Rip is from, obviously, because of just the story, but it's like, we don't really know like how the time bureau came to be, other than like, oh yeah, it's something that Rip started. We don't really know much details about it. So for what purposes would you need Ava? Like I said, not unless it's because it was for the Mollis fight, but why that specifically? Like, why not anyone else? You know, what does that say about the rest of the team, the rest of like the time bureau, you know? So I'm curious about that. And even going as far as giving her fake personality and memories and stuff like that. Why? For what purpose? How did you do it anyway? It seems like, I guess you can buy clones, I'm sure, at that point in time. So I guess he just bought one. But it's like, why go through all of this? Hopefully we get answers soon enough, because Sarah and Ava are trying to get him, which we see that we didn't run into Rip, so he's just all somewhere else. I'm curious. I mean, obviously it must have something to do with Mollis, but it's just kind of interesting that you just happen to be away during this whole situation. So I mean, I'm sure they'll eventually track him down, but I'm very curious to see like what that's all about. And then obviously another side of the episode deals with Mari. Something I didn't even think about, and it's kudos on the show for bringing that up. It's like now that Amaya doesn't have her totem, because of that, the timeline is trickling down and kind of solidifying, and Mari doesn't have it either. She's still a vigilante. She just doesn't have like the power of the totem to kind of fight with. So, which is still kind of neat that even with it being what it is, like she still ends up going down a route of a vigilante. She might not have like the powers of Vixen anymore, but she's still going to do what she's got to do. And lo and behold, Wally and Nate end up running into Kuwasa, and it's like Kuwasa's there to hurt her. It's like, nope, Kuwasa there's to protect her, because no matter what the circumstances may be, Mari is still her sister. Like, yeah, she might have a problem. The fact is that Mari's the one that got their grandmother's totem, but still. I even love that whole conversation with Wally. She's like, yeah, or whatever it is that you are. He's like, I'm the fastest man alive. Nate quickly interjects, second fastest. And Wally's like, shh. She didn't need to know that, which is like, oh, I feel so bad for you, Wally. I mean, at one point in time, Wally was the fastest man alive, because there was that point in season 3 when he was trying to get faster, that he was faster than Barry. So that's no longer the case, but it's like, probably for Wally, it's like, really, Nate? You gotta embarrass me like that, bro? She didn't need to know that. Stop trying to like undermine my cred. I'm super fast. But there's always going to be an asterisk. But you're not as fast as Barry. It's like, come on, man. That's why you're Kid Flash and he's the Flash. It's like, oh, it's just so funny on so many levels when you think about it. It's interesting too, because Kuwasa's like reason for betraying Nate, and it's something I kept bringing up. It's such an obvious thing, but it's like, it's so interesting to me that Kuwasa's like, because for her, it's like being with Nate is going to pull Amaya away from where she's supposed to be back home, starting her family life. Basically, it's like, you're endangering my existence along with Mari's existence. But immediately, like, my brain goes, you don't know that he's not your grandfather, because Kuwasa later on says that he's not, but like, do you know for sure? Because who's to say Amaya doesn't say that it's someone, she never discloses who the father of her daughter is. But I mean, the way Kuwasa made it sounded like she knew for a fact it wasn't Nate. But I'm like, you still don't know that. I still get the feeling like that is the case. Because I'm sure even Amaya probably thinks like that. She probably thinks like, I'll go back to my village, I'll meet someone there, and then I'll have a daughter, But I think no matter what the circumstances are, like, it's probably going to be a situation of like, for time reasons, they faked her death so that things would continue the way they are, or Nate stays on the ship and she eventually goes. Because like, no matter what, she will if we're going to go to the Doctor Who realm of things, it's kind of like the whole River Song situation. No matter how things play out, we all know how River's story is always going to end. But to be fair, it's something Nate kind of brings up. It's like, well, we don't know. Like, nothing's kind of set in stone, So even Amaya's destiny is kind of up in the air, but that was kind of Kuwasa's main reason for doing all that. But then like Amaya kind of chewed out, because it's like, the difference between you and Mari, and the reason why the totem chose Mari, is because Mari realizes that this is just bigger than just her. She isn't just in this to save herself or to people that are important to her. She's willing to save everyone. Because she's like, oh, like Amaya, you being here and everything, you're kind of running away from what you're supposed to be doing. You haven't gone back to your home and everything. It's like, but Amaya's doing good work. She's literally preventing time from collapsing upon itself. She's doing good work. So it's like, don't judge her, because she's off doing something good with her time. And I mean, guess what, time travel and everything, she could go back to where she needs to be anyway. But it's still that situation of like, well, I'm sure given enough time, like time will solidify without her being there. And so they'll get to the point that Amaya and her wouldn't exist anymore. So it's a situation like our existence is still at stake with that situation. But probably one of my favorite parts is the whole situation with Nate and Dark. Dark is just being so distraught and everything, like walking in and like, oh, what's up with these heroes with all these dark places? They need to go out and get somewhere for a little bit of tan. I'm sorry, honey. I'm not talking about you. You look great. But then him and Nate talking, and he's like torturing Nate. He's shocking him a little bit. He's like, normally this fill me with so much joy, but I'm not feeling it now. And he's like, it's okay. Hey, Dark, I'm gonna die anyway. So come on, just let it out, and just put the cattle prod down. It's just, this is a safe space. And like, Dark started listening to him. He's like, yeah, I wanted to burn the world, remake it in my image, all for my daughter's sake. But now, like, it's like, yeah, you sold her soul to a demon, and now that demon's come to claim your glory. It's like, exactly. And it's just like, all the closer Mollis gets to control and being free, like the more that whole thing with her face, it's just like, oh, my little girl, my baby girl, that reaction. And then it's like, okay. And then like, he's like, oh, and having Nate pretend like he's getting hurt. He's like, okay, play it up. I'm like, That's why like I said, they've had so much fun with Damien Dark this season. Like, I feel like he was a little jokey in Arrow, but I feel like last season of Legends and this season, like, they've done such a stellar job. I mean, to be fair, because I feel like amongst all the shows, this season of Legends has really kicked up the comedy angle. I feel like definitely the Flash has too, but I feel like Legends really has kicked it up, even with its villains, and I really appreciate that. Because even when it comes to Flash, I feel like the Flash still treats his villains very seriously. But in this case, like, we're seeing like a more like silly side of Damien Dark. Like, Damien Dark, the most like bad guy, you know. So it's kind of like, it's just so interesting to see that humor side of him. And I think Neil McDonough does like a fantastic job with that, kind of showing the different side of the character like that. So I was actually concerned for a moment when Amaya got activated her tone and it was purple. I was like, oh, is it supposed to be permanently purple? And then she kind of fell down. I was like, oh, it's been corrupted. So I was like, oh man. So now he's got control of Amaya. Maya's going to be part of the team. Is like, nope, she folded back and got back control. I was like, okay, because at first I was like, oh, is it going to be permanent like that now? Because immediately I was like, oh, it's purple. So that's kind of neat. It's back to being blue and everything. So she's got control. Kuwasa sadly dying at the end super sucked. And it's such a brutal thing, kind of removing the totem from her. I wonder, how did that happen? Like, the totem being embedded in her like that, rather than like Mari, or maybe that totem you have to kind of which, like, I'm curious, how did that come about, like that totem fusing me, because everyone else is, well, maybe she did that specifically herself, like to make sure no one ever took the totem from her, I guess, to fully embrace its powers. Like, she swallowed it to become whole with the totem, become one with it, whereas everyone else taps into their totem. Maybe if like Zari, for example, ate hers, like if it became a part of her body, then maybe she'd be able to become wind itself. Makes you wonder it doesn't seem like it's plausible for Amaya, but you know, I don't know if it necessarily plausible in Zari's case, but it just makes you wonder, is that what that is, or is that just like the form the water totem takes? Either way. But that sucks. Like, for Amaya, it's like one of her granddaughters is dead. And she blames herself, like Nate blames himself, because like, this wouldn't have happened if I didn't try to work with Kawasa. But in her case, it's like, she blames herself because she's like, this all happened because I pushed Kawasa to try to be a better person, try to fit the mold that Mari is. And like, everything Kawasa's done inadvertently has always been trying to prove that she's just as good as her sister is, like, if not more. Because ultimately, everything she's ever done has been for her family. Yeah, she's on the wrong side of things, but that's because she wants to ensure the restoration of her family, because it's like, she wants her entire family to grow up. She wants to grow up with her grandmother in her life, with her mom in their lives, like, not growing up like the orphans that her and her sister did. Like, even her and her sister being close, like being a whole family. So, and that's kind of even getting Amaya to the point she's thinking like, maybe I should have never gotten on this ship, you know, even meeting Nate. And it's like, is that how you really feel? She doesn't know. She's conflicted. So what we do see at the end of the episode is her going to 1992. Now, I'm curious to see what that goes about in the next episode, because that's probably going to be an episode, because in particular, the episode she's going to is the time she's going to is where she dies. So I can only assume, because basically what that's going to do is undo everything so far, because that means that she survived, and maybe that means, you know, what that means for the team. You know, I would assume it's a situation where it's like, well, you can think of it one way, because part of me is like, well, she goes back in time and changes that, it's probably going to change her involvement with the Legends. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, the fact of the matter is, it's time and everything. She could always go back to that time, live out her life, get to 1992, where another like Amaya comes back in time, goes back in time in that particular point and tries to stop that. So it turns into that, you know, kind of cycle situation. But with the way time is right now, already breaking apart because of Malice, I'm sure that's going to have consequences she won't see coming. I'm just curious to see what those means are. Like, maybe we'll kind of find out more about what exactly went down during that time. Like, I mean, it is going to be a paradox situation. I mean, I guess as long as she avoids herself, it's fine. But who's to say what she might end up changing? Maybe she'll make it so that Vixen never, you know, because their family never broke apart, maybe like to save Kawasa, maybe she'll end up, you know, saving her entire family, saving the village. And it's like, oh, so Mari and Kawasa never, you know, like the village, you know, Amaya's daughters never has to run away. And then she doesn't end up losing her daughters. So that might bring up the whole situation of, well, that means Vixen will never be where she needs to be in Detroit, being the, you know, a hero. So undoes a lot of the good she's done, all the people she saved. And like I said, it might have an adverse effect on Amaya's time on the ship with the legend, so, but most likely the Amaya she's going to meet is probably the one that's like, oh yeah, it's you. And she'll probably find out that, hey, Nate is the baby daddy. Maybe that's it, but she'll probably be like, even though it's a paradox situation, it might be a situation like, oh, we meet ourselves. But I guess at this point in time, time's already kind of falling apart, so an extra paradox on top of it might not be a bad thing. Maybe it just feeds more into what Mollis wants, because the more time is getting destroyed, the more he's getting freed, so there might be give and take with that. And also another side of this episode was the whole situation with Zari and Mick, because basically she's in charge of Mick's training with the totem. And obviously Mick, being who he is kind of insensitive, because obviously for Zari it's Ramadan, so she's fasting and stuff like that. But she's getting pissed at him, and he's getting pissed at her, even going as far as calling her a bitch. And it's like, that sets everything off. And she proceeds to kick his ass with her totem. We don't get to see all of it, but we get to hear some of it. And I guess it's because obviously he's not well versed in his totem, but obviously she is. So she kind of broke things down and kind of explained things, like her side of things, like, yeah, fasting and stuff like that. She never really cared too much about it when she was younger, but now it's like, it means a lot to her to hold on to those traditions, because it makes her feel closer to her mom. So it's just one of those things where it's kind of like, I think, a cultural thing of like, she didn't appreciate it as a child, but now she does, and kind of embraces it a lot more, which obviously makes a little insensitive to it and everything. But I think in his own way he understands, in his kind of blockhead type of way. But still, I do like the fact that he's literally just using his totem to burn food and stuff like that. But it's also super sad, because the totem bearers are connected. They do feel it. Like they both felt it when Kuasa died. So now Nora/Mollis has the water totem and has corrupted it. They have Mari's, they have Amaya, Maya/Mari's totem. So with the exception of the water totem, they have all the totems. So it's still going to be a situation of someone's going to have to wield them. Which, now that I'm thinking about, now that Ava's joined and we know that she's a clone, it might be a situation where they set it up so that Ava makes the decision to sacrifice. Well, that can't be it. You don't think Rip knew that far in advance, and it's like, oh, we need someone that's not a real person. So like, he was setting Ava up to be a sacrifice because she's not a real person, so it's not as bad. I don't know, because if that was the case, I'd be like, that's a super dick move. But hey, Rub's done a lot of super dickish things in the first place, so lying and manipulating in his mind for the greater purpose is kind of like, it's not like this is the first time he would have done that. So I'm just curious. I feel like this season and season 1 are probably the biggest, like, he's ever been a dick. I feel like he wasn't that much of a dick in season 2. He wasn't in it a lot, but I feel like he was probably the most dickish, obviously, this season, with his obsession with Mollis and kind of like doing things behind the team's back. So there's that, but also he was kind of, to be fair, his dickishness is slightly excusable in season 1 just because he was trying to save his family and everything. So I don't know. I'm just curious. I feel like maybe that might be where we end up, because Ava's willing to bear the totem so that Sarah doesn't have to. I feel like if anyone, it's super compatible with Sarah, but maybe it'll ultimately be up to Ava because she's a clone or whatever. So like I said, they might not even touch it anymore because of what it is, because that totem is kind of basically super aligned with Mollis. So, and we still haven't figured everyone else's position out, like who's going to bear the earth totem and what about the water totem. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see where like the next episode takes us with all of this. We are closing in on the end of the season. There's only like literally 2 more episodes after this. Well, 1 more episode and then the season finale. So I'm curious to see how this all plays out going forward, since we're so close to the climax. And now moving on to this week's episode of iZombie, another great episode. Obviously, keep starting things off. I'll keep things a little lighthearted about some of the lighthearted elements we saw in this episode. Obviously, the biggest part being like Liv's brain, the brain she ended up eating this episode, and it ended up belonging to a hockey player who was like kind of the bruiser of the team. And I love that Clive and Ravi were super into it. They're like, yeah. Like even at one point, Clive doing a terrible Canadian accent and just like because he could tell he's straining to do it because every time he's trying to do it, he's like cocking his like mouth to the side and everything. You just have Ravi and Liv looking in disgust, like, oh my god, that's horrible. Don't ever do that again. But just her willing just to fight everybody, even willing to kind of kick Blaine's ass, and she's just looking for any excuse to brawl, and constantly people be like, really? I mean, I'm sorry, I can't take you seriously with that missing tooth. And it's like, even Blaine at one point is like, I mean, are we really not going to talk about the fact that she's got that missing tooth? And it finally was like, yeah, you need to replace that tooth, which she does near the end of the episode. So that was pretty neat. But other than that, it's a very serious episode because obviously it sucks. Because obviously I didn't actually like. There's a whole situation with Mama Leone, Renegade, and obviously you have all these other people telling Chase what he should do about it. It's like, no, you got to keep up to your word by publicly executing, because obviously it's going to get out there that Renegade's been captured. There's already whispers about it and everything like that. And if you don't act upon it, then it's like, oh, obviously Fillmore Graves is upholding their end of the deal. And like that whole thing was put in place because it's like, okay, it makes humans feel a lot safer, because this way it's like if zombies do anything, they are punished to the most extreme, like, because zombies are held to a much higher degree in punishment, which is super sad. I mean, obviously there are some depending on the severity of their crime, because obviously Chase wanted to just lock her up, because for him it's like it doesn't matter, because from perception wise it would look bad if they just ended up killing up an old lady, a little old lady. It would have just wouldn't look good because the public would look at it like that. But also for Chase, it's like that's not his cup of tea. It's like if she was someone else, sure. If it was someone like Blaine, in a heartbeat, execute, who cares? But is it because of who she is? And it's just like, you can tell, and that's the saddest thing about this situation is like, I feel for Chase. Like, Chase isn't trying to be the bad guy. He's trying to make this work the only way he knows how. But, you know, Mama Leone talks about the fact is of like doing things a little bit different. It's like, oh yeah, like the reason why people aren't signing up for their brain, donate their brains, it's like, it's all about optics. And I guess in her perspective, it's kind of like, if you tell them this is about saving human lives rather than like keeping zombies alive, it's like by donating your brain, you're making sure that, you know, I guess one way of like, I don't know if that's necessarily her way of looking at it, but like, I guess one way could be like, oh, making it, I guess like make it seem like, well, you're keeping zombies less hungry. And this also means that, you are less likely to have to worry about zombies in the future. But I guess that's one perspective of looking at it. I don't know if that's necessarily how she was trying to interpret it, but that's how I interpret it. But it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just like Chase is in a tough position. Like, I don't know how you do that, because not only does he have to worry about, because everything in the city has to work, because if it doesn't, other people on the outside are literally going to cut their losses. There's literally a general like still saying, fuck that, nuke the city, nobody cares. And so it leaves you with so few options, and that's why you have to go to such extremes. Like, you might be like, oh, you're overcorrecting, but it's like, it's the only way he can make sure that he keeps peace and stability there. Like, to him, this is probably the only way to make sure that everything kind of plays out. Because at first, when I saw the bodies, they're like, oh, these are the bodies. I was like, oh, aren't these connected to Mom and Leone? But at the same time, it's like, well, they wouldn't know, because obviously the bodies were dumped somewhere else. So obviously they wouldn't know it's connected to Mom and Leone and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's so interesting that things are kind of playing like this. I was like, oh, so because I was wondering what this case was going to be about. And it's like, this case is about Mom and Leone's kidnapping without them realizing it. So, I mean, because I love that this season has really pushed, like, this is a situation that the city's never been in. Like, because obviously the whole zombie thing up till last season was such a huge kept secret, this underground secret in Seattle. And now it's like, not only is it like big news in Seattle, it's big news worldwide that any other situations related to zombies become a big thing. Like the whole Donnie making like a news segment, because like zombies are allocated specifically to Seattle. Yeah, there's other zombies outside of Seattle, sure, but it put like a spotlight on them. Like, oh my God, look how dangerous zombies are. It's like, oh, that's more reason why we got to take care of Seattle. So it kind of puts things in that perspective. There's a whole situation that Peyton was dealing with, that bus driver. Like, the people were like, no, he's a zombie. We don't need to be having him on the bus with us. Like, but it's like, you're discriminating against him just because he's different. You don't want, it's like, he's had no problems in the past, but it turns out like, like with the brain rations being what they are, he's been giving all his rations to his family. And so it's a give and take situation, because you understand why Renegade is doing what she's doing, because she's trying to do good. That's all she's ever tried to do. But by doing what she's doing, she's also escalating the whole situation with creating more zombies, which makes more mouths to feed, which means people get a lot less food. The brains aren't as effective as, the tubes aren't as effective. Plus, you've got people like that douchebag that works for Fillmore Graves that was like selling stock behind their backs. So, plus, once again, humans not willing to donate their brains either. It's just a mess all over the place. It's like a lose-lose situation all around. And that's the hard thing. Like, I don't know how do you do the right thing in this situation. It's like, yeah, it's clear things of like, you should do this, but it's like, this was never originally Chase's thing. Like, he was kind of brought in after his sister, like, died, as well as, like, the next people in command. So, like, he's the one that kind of had to take over this whole operation. I'm sure he didn't ask for it. Yeah, there was always potential for it. But, like, there just seems like there's no winning in this. And it's that getting back to it was a whole situation with Peyton. She was trying to get the dude more rations, but a series of events. Basically, he wasn't eating the brains because he was making sure his family stays fed. So he wasn't eating for days. He passed out. Bus crash. People got injured. There was blood. He hadn't eaten, so he ends up eating one of the people. Sets off this lady who ends up killing him. Yes, it was self-defense, but like I said, it was just a long series of events. It's like it's not necessarily an outlier situation. It is a culmination of just everything. Like, it's just dominoes effects of just one thing leading to another. It's just sad series of events. And, it just kind of makes Peyton sad because it's like, for one, she kind of blames herself because she's like, well, she was told to fire him. But at the same time, it's like, it was just a set series. Like, there was no prehistory. It was not even just him being a zombie. It's just like, he was a man that was trying to do his best to take care of his family, what little he had and everything. And it's just, I don't know, man. But sadly, I was actually shocked because I was hoping, because he wasn't bending to anyone else's pressure, but he was like, but everyone else is like, you need to do this. And so with this recent event, the whole situation with the bus driver, I guess it had to be like, no, it has to be shown that we will punish zombies. So he needed to kind of reassure the humans and everything, and also kind of put zombies in their place, which isn't saying diddly squat. This will most likely only just push Angus to like get more powerful. More people will go to him because like they're already more against Fillmore Graves anyway. And so it's a situation of like, no matter what, you got to do what you got to do. No matter how, yeah, you might have to do ugly things and things you never thought you would have to do. But when it comes down to it, it's like, because no one else is in his situation. Like, I don't know, maybe there, like I said, there is a more viable situation. Like, I'm not saying all he's doing is the right thing, but it's like, in his mind, it's the only thing he can do. And it's just like, I can't fault him for that. But it's just a messed up situation all around. But I wasn't expecting her to actually get executed because I know he didn't want to. Even when he was getting her defrosted, you can tell in his eyes like he didn't want to do that. Like, because it meant probably becoming and doing what he doesn't want to be. He just wants to be a good leader. He wants to make this all work out, not for other people. He is trying this for everybody. But what's kind of interesting is this whole situation inspires Liv. That Liv is becoming a revolutionary. Going to, like, we see her kind of starting a revolution. It's like, we're going to continue what Mama Leone started. And it's something that the guy that she was talking to in this episode was kind of getting at. The fact of the matter is Chinatown, obviously like Clive had to break it down for her, being a situation of like the corruption makes it hard to get justice. Obviously in this episode, it's like Blaine, yet again, we have a vision, but that's not enough. And it's just always something ready to take down Blaine, but it's never enough. I mean, in this case, it was kind of like, Blaine was kind of like, look at you, me and you, Liv. We used to be Team OGZ. And now look at us. Every time it's just like, where were you on the night of so-and-so's death? It's like, it is kind of interesting to think about that they started where they were like, okay, I guess we're good allies. Oh, and now we're like enemies and we stayed enemies and we've reluctantly work together, but it's like this time it's like, oh, we can take Blaine down. He's a terrible human being. There's no going back from it. And he kind of embraces it even more. So there's even the situation where it's like Donnie and Major kidnapped General Mills' daughter, Sloane, ended up making her a zombie because she OD'd. But they were kidnapping her because it's like, if she's in Seattle, the general is going to be less likely to want to blow up the city because he's the one pushing for it the most. So he bought them more time. So it is kind of like doing what you need to do. Because even Major, like, Liv's crying out for him during the whole execution thing, but Major doesn't look at her to the end. Like, you see the disappointed look on both of them. It's like Major knows, and it's probably Liv is going to hate him. They already have like their differences because of the political aspect of it. So even at this point in time, their friendship is probably going to be heavily influenced by this because it's like, oh, you chose your side and I chose mine. And that's something I brought up before, like back in like season, when I was discussing what was going to happen in season 3, that they would have to choose their side. Ultimately, you know, he ultimately did, and Liv didn't really choose a side. She kind of stayed in the middle, which like Fillmore Graves is all about both sides too, but it's just kind of like they have their own way of approaching it, and now you have Liv doing the same thing, but now they're on opposite sides of things. Because if Liv gets caught, she will be in that same situation too. I'm sure you're going to have people like Peyton, definitely Clive. So she's going to have to keep it quiet from Clive because it's like, yeah, if Clive gets caught up in all of this, like he'll be in trouble too. But Peyton and Ravi are probably going to try and talk her out of doing this. So she might even try and keep it from them. They might try to even be with her on this. But I'm just curious to see what she does. Like, I mean, obviously continuing Mama Leone's work, but I like that they're doing this, that they are setting her up, because Liv is one of the first people amongst this whole zombie. Like, it makes sense too, because she was like the first OG zombie in Seattle, and it's, well, not really. That kind of started with Blaine, but still, like, this all kind of started with them, and it's like up to her to kind of fight this fight, especially continuing the good that, you know, Mama Leone was trying to do, just trying to help people. Like I said, she felt like she couldn't do it in the past when it came to her husband and just everything that Blaine was doing, but she was finding a different way, and now she's kind of passed, you know, that torch is being passed on to Liv too. So, and Liv has always tried to do the right thing, but it's like, how do I do the right thing when ultimately it doesn't matter? Because it's just like bad people like Blaine get to do what they want to, and good people like Mama Leone, who's just trying to do her best, trying to do something good, get punished for it. It's a heavy and complicated situation. Like I said, I don't see. I'm so curious to see how like this whole season plays out with that whole aspect, you know? Because you want it just to be one single thing of like, oh, this one thing will lead to a happy ending all across the board. But like I said, there's so much writing on this, so many lives, and for both humans and zombies, and entire cities' future, the world's future, like resides on what goes down in Seattle. There's also the cures at play. Let's not forget, Blaine still has that. Only person that knows he has it is Donnie. And it's like, I don't know, man. There's no telling how this all will play out. And I think that what's made this episode so powerful. And I feel like it's a crucial episode to like setting up the show going forward, you know. And I'm so fascinated to see how it in fact plays out. And even that situation with the general's daughter too, real quickly, even that won't last forever, because like the moment he finds out his daughter's a zombie, it's probably gonna be like, yeah, well, she's dead now. I'm like, that's what a lot of people, dead enders, for example, like believe. It's like, oh, the moment you're a zombie, who cares about you anymore, type of thing. So that, like, they probably have to keep it. Well, he'll probably be like, oh, I want to see my daughter, but it's like, they'll have to spray tan her and everything, pretend like she isn't a zombie. So things didn't, because obviously because of Donnie, things didn't necessarily go to the plan, and in fact things got even worse. So I'm curious to see how that goes to like the outside world's reaction. We saw a glimpse of that this episode with that news report about, you know, Donnie kind of losing it there. So, but also what happens to Blaine, because Ravi did kind of bring it up this episode. He's like, Blaine will get his just due at some point in time. It's like, with all the karma he's built up, I kind of do get the feeling like when it's all said and done, Blaine is going to walk away from this series dead. I don't know, maybe locked up, maybe he will just kind of, I don't know, man. But the way things are now, like obviously him and Chase have that working relationship, obviously the collaboration between Donnie and Major this episode, but still they'll probably get to that point where even Chase will be like, well, I have to make an example of Blaine, but Blaine also provides essential source, you know, brains for the community and everything for zombies. So I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I just kind of, it seems like they are foreshadowing that, because I feel like they've never really pushed, like, thrown something like foreshadowing like that out there for Blaine. Maybe they have, I don't know. But just with all of this going forward, like, Liv is never, obviously she was all for taking Blaine down, and I think she's even more motivated because it's like, it's his fault, and obviously she's willing to fill more graves, like I said, even Chase and Major, for what went down here. So like I said, it's definitely going to get very interesting going forward. Also note that there won't be a new episode of iZombie next week, but there will be one the week after that on the 9th. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good